Hello YouTube, TW here, and welcome to my review of the PS5 exclusive Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, the first RNC sequel since 2013. Just for the sake of clarity, here's my history with the series. I was introduced via the third entry up your arsenal when some friends brought it over, as my house was kind of the go-to one to hang out at and play games. After that, I was hooked, and when Deadlocked came out, we played that as well, but UIE was our main source for Lombax themed fun times. It wasn't until many years later that I'd eventually check out the first two games. RNC had a great story, but the gameplay does not hold up well in my opinion, but Going Commando is still a classic. After that, I finally played the reboot once Sony gave it away for free, BT dubs, and it was fine. Not great, not terrible, but fine. It was okay, and I'll save all further thoughts on those games for a later date. And no, I still haven't played any of the PS3 games, as I've never owned that console. With all that being said, we can now begin our review of Rift Apart! Since this game is still relatively new, and PS5s aren't the most common console to collect for non-robot using peoples, I'm not going to spoil every single thing in the game, but there will be spoilers, so beware and all that. The basic plot has our titular duo alongside their arch-nemesis Dr. Nefarious sucked into a dimension where the not-so-good Doc always wins. Oh, and they're separated to boot.
Ratchet, the Dimensionator.
Clank spends most of this game teaming up with this universe's Lombax, Rivet, voiced by Jennifer Commander Shepard Hale. Yes, she has a robot arm, and yes, she's still rather upbeat despite that. Ratchet, on the other hand, teams up with the reclusive robot that eventually takes up the nickname of Kit, voiced by Deborah Wilson. Yeah, this game is pretty star-studded with its cast, and it certainly pays off as everyone puts forth an awesome performance. The main goal of our two teams is to take down Dr. Nefarious and later Emperor Nefarious, as well as fix all the rifts that are opening up all over the universe. Along the way, we'll meet characters both new and, well, kind of old, as they're alternate universe versions of characters we've come to know in the franchise. Unfortunately, Jim Ward was unable to return to voice Captain Quark due to being forced to retire after suffering from both COVID and Alzheimer's. So if anyone who knows Jim happens to be watching this, I'd just like to say thank you for voicing one of my favorite goofy characters, not just in gaming, but period. When it comes to the tone of this story, it's very Pixar. It's definitely not as edgy as the original 4 entries, but I can at least say that it has more going for it than the reboot due to Insomniac not needing to be handcuffed by having to tie into a big budget film. The script does have some pretty good legitimate moments, with my favorite being a moment when you arrive on Rivet's home planet to defend the local population, the Morts, from the Emperor's forces. It should be noted that the Morts have a let's say, minor obsession with lemonade.
Is all this fighting really necessary? Can't we talk about this over some lemonade?
No! The Emperor despises lemonade! Nothing should be sour and sweet!
You may notice that RNC as well as RNK eventually swap partners. This happens around halfway in and doesn't really change anything gameplay-wise. In fact, this might be the most useless Clank has ever been. Early on, Ratchet is without any partner and he gets around just as well as ever. So, sorry bud, but Ratchet has hover boots to keep him afloat now. Speaking of the gameplay, it's easily the best I've played of the entire franchise. The gameplay is what you'd expect at this point, shooting guns that incrementally level up, a little bit of platforming, plus some gimmicks. First, we have Glitch, a computer program that can kill viruses. It's a fine enough addition, and if you're not a fan of them, then know that you'll only be required to play 3 out of 5 of the Glitch levels. My favorite part is that Glitch sounds anime AF, and no, her VA, Sarah Amini, has never done anime. I don't know, maybe I'm just hearing things. You be the judge. And it wouldn't be a true proper RNC game without Clank having some puzzle work to do. Here our robot bud essentially plays lemmings. While super easy to start off, these puzzles can eventually be pretty brain-scratching if you overthink them. And on top of all that, we have the Speedles, which, true to their name, can be pretty quick and obstacles will come at you just as fast, so get those reflexes ready. Following that, we have Zerky's Battleplex, which is our arena of the game as well as the bar where our rebellious heroes hang out. At this venue, we can partake in various challenges, with my favorite being the Speedle course. This is due to the game being able to show off its near instant loading by having to go through multiple rifts. By the way, rifts play a pretty big part of the gameplay mechanics. You'll usually find them all over the level, and by tethering to them, you can essentially teleport all over the place. Hidden in each level are rifts that can take you to special platforming sections, which really give me Mario Sunshine vibes in the best way. Completing these will net you some armor. There are 3 pieces per set, but regardless of what you wear, you maintain the effects of everything you collect. There are also gold bolts to get, which unlock cheats. In Insomniac, thank you for bringing back cheats. Fuck microtransactions. Fuck them to Helheim! You can also find infobots, and if you collect them all, you can unlock the Rhino, which I never did because I'm not really one to find 100% of any collectibles. I mean, heck, I didn't even find all the armor in the game. I do like how the armor does show up in cutscenes though. It gives a pretty good incentive to find them all. Might even get the deluxe edition someday. Maybe. Also, am I the only one who finds only using default appearances to be boring? Like, imagine playing Mass Effect and using the default face in N7 armor only. Yawn? But what about all the guns? Those won't make you yawn. Oh boy, Rift Apart has quite the arsenal for us to choose from. My main combos were to use the Fungi, Glove of Doom, and the Topiary Sprinkler alongside a weapon to take enemies and even bosses down with absolute ease. This game might have the most OP set of weapons I've ever played because some of these bosses go down super fast if you know what you're doing. Then again, I suppose that's the payoff for finding a winning combination. The level design, while linear, is a fun type of linear. It never felt like just one straight line, especially with some areas being open for exploration. Not to the extent of 1 or 2, but certainly more than the reboot. My favorite planet, outside of Zerky's because I love combat arenas in video games, is Savali, due to it being built around the hover boots, which allow you to boost around the level at super quick speeds. On top of that, it's also one of the more exploration-driven areas in the game. I also quite like the aesthetics of Nefarious City. Then again, I am a fan of the cyberpunk environment, so that might not be fair to the rest of the game. Blizar Prime is another good time as you're constantly going between 2 different dimensions by hitting the Blizar crystals. The speed at which these 2 separate areas load is unreal, and probably the devs showing off again, but if you've got it, flaunt it, I suppose. Overall, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is an absolutely stellar entry for the series. I don't think it's going to win over fans that are ride or die for the first 2 games, but for everyone else, you're going to have a fun time here. Yes, it's a shame that the satire of consumerism and capitalism is of the past, but we have other developers picking up that slack now. The only shame for me is that the best way to play the PS2 games is still the PS2. Some sort of PS5 remaster collection would be a nice way to preserve them, but that's another topic for another time. For now, we have Rift Apart, and it's far, far from the worst thing I've ever played, and if nothing else, I might actually end up completing it one day. Eventually, maybe. Join me next time as we venture through another game made for the PlayStation.
Mort, break out the lemonade. We're getting crazy tonight.